Hi everyone, I am Newt Bochter-Smith and I'm on the NPM team at GitLab, and I'm going to talk about lifecycle marketing and email marketing at GitLab. So Dunk, you know this, Jackie, you know this, lifecycle marketing is important. I'm not going to get into why it's important, but we do spend a lot of money on net new leads right now, and we don't do a lot to keep them engaged with the right content. So we really have a big opportunity to get better at that. Obviously, benefits of lifecycle marketing: you want to save money, you want to increase revenue, you want to be more efficient, you want to increase conversions and funnel velocity. And that is the section that I've highlighted here because it's really important. More relevant touches along the lifecycle: lead, customer, user lifecycle even, mean more potential conversion points and faster conversion. So we want to be right there when someone needs something. We want to be like, hey, I am here to help you. As well as identifying funnel leaks a little bit faster than if you don't have anything set up. So currently I'm going to go into a little state of the union. It's a little bit of a mess. We've just grown so quickly, and for a long time, the team was very small and bootstrapped, and we were just moving at 1,000,000 miles a minute. So there are some communication gaps for sure. Our segmentation is not very clear. There's a lot of opportunity here. You know, Dunk, that there's disparate data sources that we're working on combining. We don't really rely on automated campaigns, and I know that automated campaigns tend to have the understanding that it's more of a B2C thing. That's not true. Automated campaigns can be used across any business. We have a lot of ad hoc processes, and they're getting harder and harder to scale. We're not doing any database lifecycle campaigns at all, like no welcome or reactivation campaigns. And because of that, leads are becoming inactive. And right now we don't really have a reactivation strategy yet. So just a few numbers. The current state of our database as of yesterday, May 19th, 2020. I just wanted to pull, like, what does our database at Marketo look like? This is just Marketo. How many people do we have in there? And how old are the records? So as you can see here, we have about 2.3 million records in Marketo. And by records, I just mean leads and contacts, so people. And about 1.2 million of them were created in the last 12 months, 726,000 in the last 6 months, and almost 500,000 in the last 3 months.
So half of our database is within the last year. Got it.
Yeah, and we're, as the numbers show you, like, we're continuing to grow the database. But what I kind of wanted to show you is that out of all the records created in the last 3 months, 377,000 of the 427,000 have not been sent any email in the last 30 days. Nothing. And of all the records in Marketo, only 188,000, give or take, have been active in the last 6 months. And I define activity as clicked any email, member of any program with a high value status, filled out any form, signed up for a trial, viewed any Path Factory content, or visited our website.
Hey, Newt, the State of DevOps report, I just got a blurb on it in Instagram, but I didn't get an email on it, even though I was a trial user. Is that basically the problem you're trying to point out?
Yeah, we're just like, we have so many processes that are just like here, 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 here. And we don't really have kind of an automated strategy to, like, automate that, for example.
Right.
And so exactly like you said, like, when someone takes an action, we should be communicating with them in some way. I'm not trying to say let's over communicate, but these numbers are showing that, like, we're just not communicating at all or enough. And the problem with that is you get an aging database that we've spent a lot of money and time on creating, and then we don't really want it to slowly atrophy, basically.
Hey, Newt, can you go back? There's just,
Yeah.
I'm trying to look at the numbers here. Okay,
Sure.
So all the records in Marketo, we're saying of the 2.3 million, basically 95% of them have not gotten an email in 30 days. And of that 2.3 million, correct me if I'm wrong, that's about 80% of them have not gotten an email in 6 months. Is that correct?
let's see, of all the records, not sent any email in the last 6
I
months.
always start at the top at the all the records and then
Yeah,
not, yeah.
about half of them haven't gotten any email in 6 months, and
Okay.
about I'm okay with not emailing the entire database, in the last 6 months.
Hmm.
I would like to focus on potentially taking the people that are not active in the last 12 months and sequestering them.
Right.
And
do
really,
a rewarming campaign.
yeah, and really focus on the people that are active and try and rewarm some of the people that are not active. And if that doesn't work, we just say goodbye.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
those people could be a cause for a honeypot or a spam trap or other deliverability issues. And really, we need to focus our energy on creating those lifecycle campaigns so this doesn't happen in the future.
Right.
I'm also, just a note, I think reporting begets more reporting. So for this,
Yes.
looking at the sources of these records and what statuses they're currently in,
Absolutely.
I have a hunch that a lot of these are developed from prospecting by the SDR team, which is, I would just want to think about, like, how do we use that?
Yeah. Good point, Jackie, because I was also thinking I'd want to see these numbers by lead status too. Like how many of them are MQLs, how many of them haven't even gotten there or just an inquiry, how many of them have gotten past MQL, what's going on there. Jackie, do you mind making a note for me to do that? Thank you. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can stage them as pre MQL, something like that. Post MQL, but pre SAO, something like that.
We can even see like their MQLs and the SDRs have reached out to them, but they haven't engaged. The people haven't engaged back. We can see that as well,
right?
Which is nice. It's one of the easier reports to pull.
You will find my name in there, by the way, because I'm in that category, and I'm in your database.
Exclude Dunk. So that was kind of a little scary, but don't worry, we are making improvements slowly. If you look at overall performance of our emails, I pulled all the data for all the emails sent out of Marketo for the last 6 months and the previous 6 months. And this is really exciting. Jackie, I don't know if you knew this, but we've made a 63% lift in unique open rate and a 93% lift in click-through rate and a 22% lift in click to open, and our unsubscribe rate even went down.
Right. Now, Newt, just to confirm for everybody that's listening to this call, unique open rate does not include seeing the email in a preview mode, correct?
Well, it depends on your browser.
Okay. All right.
So you're right. What I think the point you're trying to make is the open rate is a
positive
number,
action.
Is a number that there are some there could be some errors in that number. Okay. So it's not necessarily a KPI number. Like I wouldn't really stake my reputation on it, but there is some movement in the right direction. That could be due to a lot of different factors, but I'm just really excited to see that. It could be better targeting in our database. It could be our emails, we're writing better copy. We have better offers, better CTAs, and our emails are just more attractive.
Well, I think the most impressive statistic there is your click-through rate.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with this. It's pretty awesome. And it's not even like where I'd want to see it. I'd want to see it even better than that, but I think this is really great.
Well, by the way, also don't understate that, your deliverability ratio is really good.
It's not bad. It is for me a little, I'd want to see it on the higher end of 90. Yeah. And see the bounces a little bit lower. That'll happen when we clean up our database a little bit. And we put in lifecycle database campaigns that, take records and mark them as inactive if they're just not engaging with us. So I'm not too worried about that right now. So we've just been doing a little bit of testing and improvements, and we just wanted to give you a quick rundown of what we're seeing. We have a long way to go to basically create a culture of testing and sharing results. Because I think for a long time GitLab was very go, 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 and then, this is at every company. It's hard to just take a breather and create a strategy for testing and reporting and stuff like that. But I've been slowly making some changes. One of the A/B tests we ran, Agnes actually ran this one, but I made some really minor changes to the GitLab newsletter template. The old one is on the left and the new one is on the right. See, it's not a huge difference, but there's just a simple redesign, and over again, the new design has been the winner. This test has ran like maybe 3 or 4 times. So we're making small incremental changes. I did some more changes. I actually completely redesigned the webcast invitation email, and I was really excited because I was like, this is cool. Look how great. The feedback I got from people was like, oh yeah, this is really nice. It's the one on the left, the purple one. And so I ran with it. And then I had a stakeholder, Alicia, actually, she said, hey, can we test your beautiful design that we all love so much against an all text email? And I was like, oh, puff, like all text, boo. But she had a point that was pretty good and I couldn't refute, is that the audience for this is going to be more of a technical audience. And the hypothesis is a technical audience prefers more stripped down email.
Yeah, get to the point. Yeah.
Yeah, just get to the point. Don't show me colors and icons and stuff. I don't care. So that's kind of what we did. We kept the copy as consistent as possible. That's harder to do, obviously, with all text email, but it's still an HTML email. It's not a text only email. It's just really stripped down. So the text version won both times. As much as I would like to say that beautiful design always wins, it does not always win.
Won by a large amount or won by a minor amount?
If you'll see, the text version won both times here.
Oh, here we go. Yep, sorry.
304. Thanks. It's okay. I didn't do like the percent changes, but 304 versus 254 and 183 versus 174. So the first time was a little bit more.
Yeah, about 20%. Yep.
Yeah, and then the second time it wasn't quite as much. But definitely something to consider, because creating a text email is a lot faster. You don't have to ask for images. You don't have to figure out, colors and this and that. It's just, when you're coding something like this, it's just a lot faster.
Did you run a test with, I don't know if this came up, but just the simple text, but with the GitLab logo in the email? Did you try that one?
No. I'm trying to remember. Did I do the GitLab logo? No, I don't think I did. But I did it with a button.
Got it.
But the logo, that's a good idea. I should try it with a logo, see if that makes a difference. Because buttons always win. That's just everywhere I've ever worked, buttons always win. So I was like, you know what? I know text won, but what if I do text versus text with button? Text with button won. We had 103 clicks here versus 83. So quite a bit of a jump.
Right.
Oops. But once again, like I said, this is a lot faster and easier to create than like a whole design email template. So just something to think about when we take our audience into account for more of a technical audience. All right. So another example, this was not a straight A/B test. I think I was just moving so fast. I didn't have time to like do an A/B test, but last year in 2019 and very beginning of this year, January, we ran 3 of the GitLab commit events, and that's our user conference. And Jackie actually did the marketing for Brooklyn and London, and then I took over for San Francisco. And so before, the emails kind of look like this. The hero image, that was just like one large image. I like to get away from that, because if an image doesn't load, and often they don't, some email clients don't load images by default. Outlook does not load images. You won't see your main point, your main call to action. So I just said, okay, I'm going to rebuild these. It's all text overlay. All the buttons are HTML buttons. And they performed pretty well. This first one didn't perform very well, but that could be due to the targeting. It was very poor, to be perfectly honest. And so as this was the first one I sent, and then as I sent more, I got a little bit better at targeting. And then this one right here, it was like we were just playing around, made it look like a command line in the email. So it just shows you kind of like what we can do as we make improvements.
And Newt, these were, can you go back to that?
Sure.
These were to existing people in the database, right? This
Mhm.
wasn't net
Yeah.
new acquisition. Okay.
No, this was all existing people in our database, just trying to get them to take a look at commit, register if they're interested in attending,
Yeah.
potentially submitting a proposal to speak.
Look,
So it's
yeah, the characteristics that I like and what I see is I love the fact that you've made the image be part of the background, right? So it's not having to load the image separately because you're right, we have that problem with that.
yeah.
And I do really like the last one, which is the simple, effective developer persona. Since I would assume that a lot of our databases has got developer personas in there. So I
Yeah.
love that. But I also like the other test, which had the people shown, because obviously, as you know, right, you typically get a higher click-through rate or an open rate,
When you get
based on when
people.
you show some people, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I really like those two tests. It's interesting to see that those. And did you run both of them, kind of interleave them based on personas, or was it a straight line, found a winner, and just continued with it?
For let's
Commit
see
for commit.
for commit. Oh, sorry. Yeah, this was not based on persona for commit. It was just all the people we were targeting for that event. And for this year's commit, it's the designs are changing again because ta-da, we're getting a brand new modular email template.
Interesting.
So this was my project back at my old job. I worked with a design team and a dev team to create it was giant. I mean, it was so big it like didn't even fit on one piece of paper. But basically every module you could ever need in an email across a marketing organization, or even other needs like internal comms or something. And you'd build it out in a way that all a person would need to do that needs to send out an email is just say, yep, I want this module, I want module B, I want module F and D, and I'm done. So I created the first version of this. It's actually in use now. I use it, and there are bits and pieces of it that we're using in Marketo. And then the design team, they wanted to kind of give it a more GitLab refresh. So we have a design contractor right now working on giving it a facelift. He's gonna provide me with the updated PSD, and then I'm gonna redevelop this. I already have the HTML and everything. I just need to probably make some updates, and then it's gonna go into Marketo so that we can all use it.
And to be clear, so the email will never be this long, but it's just to make it really efficient that you can choose the different pieces and you only have one code base as the base for every email in your Marketo, so you don't have to keep updating.
Yep, Dunk. So the CSS stays the same, and just the different HTML modules, you basically toggle them on and off. So yeah, it will never be this long. Okay, cool. So any questions about that at all? I'm pretty excited about this.
want to touch a little bit on the commit emails, and I think this will go to the comment about just targeting our database in general. For these emails, a challenge that we ran into was in our targeting. It was almost there was no persona basis. I mean, there were some persona bases, but mostly it was about the region that was being targeted, and we expanded far beyond the region of where the event was taking place in some cases. So
yeah,
it's hard to, we have the ability to do A/B testing and multivariate testing in Marketo. And I think that that's something that we'd want to employ more instead of just refreshing. And the audience is really something we need to improve.
Yeah.
How we target.
I'm used to targeting based on persona, but that data is not very clear in our database. There's not really a persona field. Even if there is, it's not, I don't know, like there just isn't an easy way to target.
Yeah, I mean, you are building out the preferences center, right, Newt? And we'll start socializing, or have you already started that campaign to ask people about their preferences?
No.
Okay.
It's something that we'll need to work with marketing operations on. And so we have a laundry list of things that we're working with them on. They're focusing some of the foundational elements, but the preference center, there's going to be a lot of probably new fields that we need to create. And so we want to make sure we'll have the strategy locked down so that we can employ their help and get that rolling.
Yep. And we just need to prioritize because there are a lot of things in the backlog right now. But
Well, we could, just as an idea, we could start to provide kind of a call to action for different personas in the email and see how that performs, right? To begin to build that knowledge, provided we have a way to capture that persona and add that to the lead record, right? But we could have hey, I'm a developer, I'm interested in this, click here, and
yeah,
hey, so we could maybe do a couple of those and see if we could begin to build intelligence around the persona earlier than waiting for them to fill out a preferences survey.
that is actually my dream, my plan for the unresponsive to SDR nurture. The first email in that campaign is basically a pseudo preference center that actually Google Cloud does a really beautiful one. They just ask you, what do you want to hear about? And then you click and it takes you to a thank you page, and they take that data and just put it on your contact record. So
right. Yep. You can infer the persona from that without having to be explicit. Yeah.
Exactly. You can make a lot of inferences from that. Just ask people and see what they say. So I think there's just so much opportunity, like sky's the limit.
Good.
Speaking of opportunity, I have some ideas about implementing Lifecycle marketing at GitLab. So as you know, email is an integral part of Lifecycle marketing. I was looking at some data because I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't coming from like, I love email, therefore email is the best. No, because like I will be the first to admit that I'm wrong if there's good data. And there's a really interesting Twilio study that just came out. And it found that 83% of consumers prefer to receive communications from businesses over email still. And I just thought that was like, okay, I feel good about this. I'm not just like thinking email is great when it's not. And then there's some other surveys like executives, 82 to 92% respondents cited that email is preferred channel of communication. Okay, cool. So, okay, I feel okay about email being an integral part of Lifecycle. So, but obviously we have to do it right, the right message, the right person, the right time, the right channel with relevant, timely, permission-based marketing. And ta-da, this is a lot. Can you see this? Because it looks quite blurry on my screen. No,
I see it fine.
Okay. Sorry, Jackie.
No, actually, when it's actually at like the full screen, I can see it better than when we were looking at this the other day.
Yeah, it was weird because like in Google Slides, like you couldn't really see it. But basically, this is a Lifecycle campaign mainly lead Lifecycle map of what it should look like. And so at the very top, you have some sources here.
Yep, got it.
The second row is the statuses or the stage. So we have raw, inquiry, and this is mostly going to focus on lead, but I also wanted to show you that there's the user lifecycle, there's community contacts, ABM, and partner that all potentially need to be treated differently and have different life cycles.
Yeah, so you would create a label on the left side of that called audience, right?
Yes.
Source, audience, status, and stage, right?
Yeah, I need to put that there.
Yep.
Jackie, will you make a note for me? Thank you. Audience, exactly.
Yep.
And so as the lead or contact moves through their different stages, what types of, whether it be lifecycle campaigns or just campaigns, are we running to hit them in their stage? So here we have a double opt-in or a welcome program, depending on location and source. Obviously we have our trial nurtures that can be improved on, but what you see that's got the dotted lines, those don't exist yet. Everything that has a solid line exists in some format.
Okay.
So over here we have the trial nurture. We have SDR outreach sequences that that happen when the lead is an accepted stage. Our use case nurtures go from inquiry all the way to qualifying. We don't really want to communicate too much when they're qualified. And potentially after an opportunity is closed, if there's an opportunity for like close lost nurture, depending on the reason it closed lost, that I put that here as a potential idea. And then security releases, we send those out. They
Right.
obviously
Security bulletins, notifications, right?
yeah. Updates. Those don't. It doesn't really matter where you are in the life cycle. That works for everybody. Prospect newsletter usually goes across. We could do a better job with that, honestly. Sometimes we'll do surveys and research. It's not super often, but we do. We have like a developer survey. The unresponsive to SDR nurture, that's something I'm planning right now. Again, surveys, research sometimes happens to folks that are customers. And then reactivation should happen across the entire life cycle, and so do triggered emails. And then over here, I have this is an engagement status. So pending, active, lapsing, and inactive, obviously we can change the name, but what pending means is it's a record we have, but we have not gotten permission to email them yet.
Right.
So generally speaking, we get pending from GDPR countries where they fill out the form to get a white paper or something, but they don't say you can email me.
That's right.
So we'll have pending, and then they get a double opt-in or a welcome to opt in. But if they don't, then they stay pending. Active is just like you've done a thing. We can, it's a form, fill, or member of program, clicked on an email, et cetera, et cetera. Lapsing is when you get close to how we want to define that. It's up to us, but how I've defined it in the past is lapsing is up to 12 months, and anything after 12 months and you haven't done anything, you become inactive. And so when you're inactive, the only emails you can get are triggered. When you become, but if you do a thing and get a triggered email, you're back to being active, basically.
Okay.
So
you're walking back up the point scale there.
Yeah, you're basically walking up the point scale in a way, or you're just reactivating yourself. There are a lot of details about like, do we want, lead scoring, and there's just a lot of details that I'm not getting too far in the weeds here. But over here we have partner, obviously, and then we have customer, and there's so much opportunity for customer marketing. And Jackie has so much experience in that arena. I don't have quite as much experience, but a customer newsletter, customer onboarding. I know we just got Gainsight set up. And opportunities for cross-sell, upsell. Like, I just feel like we don't do much of that right now. And same with partner contacts. Like, there's just a lot of opportunity there.
So 3-4 observations that I would have. Nope, go back. First off, this is great. The visualization summary is exactly the way we need to be showing how things go. I would, as I said, one observation is always clearly define your audiences, right? So everybody understands who you're talking about. And so that's your up there. Also, always provide the time dimension. So maybe it's on the bottom where you show like each of these hash marks is 30 days or 60 days or week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. But I think it's important to show time, because people will always look at this and try to understand it reading left to right, and they'll be inferring a time dimension that we want to make really explicit to them. I think another important part to this is, as you said, there's the stage 1, which is all of the activities from an email marketing perspective up to becoming a customer. And then I agree, I think you need to have a jumping off and a slide 2, right? Which is now, here is all the customer adoption marketing, expansion marketing email programs we're going to run, right? And so this is real important, because over the last couple of days, Sid has said a couple of different times how important it is for marketing to help drive stage expansion in the accounts. Well, all of sales and marketing combined, the go-to-market team, right? And that the number one thing he's looking at to help him from an efficacy perspective and understand the efficacy of what we're doing is how quickly we can get that stage expansion, because it translates into improved renewal rates, improved adoption, higher IECVs, right? And so, I would just ask you to, as we think about the ideal state of what we want to do, after they've landed, build out that slide also, build out a plan for that. Now, the third thing, or the fourth observation I would have is, I think it's important to understand in email marketing, how much of this is programmatic versus how much of this is freeform. So as an example, when the MQL gets turned over to the SDR for qualification purposes, are they leveraging and using a structured template that we provide to them with personalization? Or are they making up their own email outreach campaign? Same thing when we turn it over to sales. So I'd like to first have you answer that question.
From what I understand, and Jackie, you might be able to hop in with more context, but from what I understand, we provide them with all sorts of outreach templates, but they actually can go in and delete the whole thing and just write something that they want to write. So it's like we give them a menu of options, but they can choose to order off the menu. Jackie, what's your take?
Yeah, from the integrated campaign standpoint, we always have, and we team with the SDRs in bringing together the right outreach sequence. So we'll have usually 2 SDRs per campaign, and they'll work through how given all the information that we provide, like the persona, the messaging, like how this will be used, what the campaign looks like, what would be the ideal follow-up path using their experience, and kind of letting them be a voice to the rest of the SDR team. And then we'll test out all of the links. If they're using, for example, Path Factory links, we want to make sure that the tracking is appropriate so that the person's not going to hit a form when they go through it.
Right.
And there was a recent SDR training on outreach and Path Factory, so that's something to follow up on too.
Okay, so I did note a couple of things that I encountered when I took the trial and got into the nurture stream. And first, I will say this is an observation with a data point of 1, which would be me. So it doesn't necessarily mean this is the common experience of other people. But what I did note was when I took the trial, I got my welcome email. What was fascinating to me was that it very much presumed that I was a developer, even though I did not say I was a developer when I filled out the form to take the trial. And so, but it directly put me into, let's get started with your GitLab project, right? And so I thought, and the commentary and the context of that trial or that email was really very much, it struck me as being very much towards the developer persona. What was interesting to me was 5 days later, I got a second nurture email, which then asked me, oh, would you be interested in like agile management, agile development? And I thought that was very misplaced in terms of, like our initial email should, much like a preferences email, ask what are they mainly interested in the product? What would you like to do? Are you just want to try out our source code management system? You're interested in improving DevOps. You want to try out the DevSecOps platform. I want to learn more about lean value stream management and agile. So I think we might want to think about that flow very carefully. If we're not able to tie the persona or the contact record back to that email nurture, we could be losing people because we're presuming in the trial that they're interested in seeing one thing when in fact they may be interested in seeing another. Now, the second thing that I observed was real interesting is when the SDR reached out to me, the SDR actually took me back to the initial overview page of the product that shows all the stages and the competitors with a call to action of take a trial. And I'd already taken the trial, so I thought that was really kind of weird, right? It would have been better to have something that, I understand she's trying to explain all the feature functionality to me, but it was just kind of a weird, off-putting, hey, wait a minute, I'm already in the trial. Why don't you provide something to me more useful? Again, data point of 1. So I can't say that I have a common behavior that you would see across multiple people. But I do know that this is one of the things that Danielle is also focusing on, which is the entire trial experience. And so I think we ought to, harmonize this with what she's looking at also, because this is going to be very useful as we reconstruct this, because obviously, a quick path to IECV and marketing efficiency is to convert better, but also to understand who isn't going to convert and get them out of the activity set as fast as possible. You'll hear me say that a lot. Convert as quick as you can and basically disqualify as quick as you can, because then you're not wasting any cycles or any team efforts on all these other things, and you don't pollute your data with a bunch of gomers that aren't really interested in doing anything. Like I was a gomer, right? And so And you're not wasting SDR cycles and inefficiencies in marketing that cause those problems. So those would be my observations.
And I think we definitely need to review the child nurture. I don't think that's had any attention since December of 2018. So I think we've already synced with Danielle and Becky just shortly about just like email marketing planning. There's so much opportunity here that having help in that area, and especially with them being really specifically focused on trial, I think there's a huge opportunity to work together and make sure that that's the optimal experience.
Yeah, and I believe that's a hot topic for Todd and Sid right now, because
Yeah.
I heard Sid mention that on the call earlier today.
Yeah, I definitely think that we've already been a little bit in touch, and we'll continue to be more in touch and see how we can break out some of these projects.
And like I said, I think that other part of it is, as you know, is that, if the SDR or the sales rep sent out the wrong content, the wrong step, poor formed email, things we've talked about, we're going to lose them too. And so I think we just continue to extend, and if there's more structure we can put, even better, with allowing some degree of personalization, because it eliminates the possibility of extemporaneous changes to the conversion or extemporaneous changes that have a negative impact on the conversion rate.
Yeah, and I also think we could, on the trial form, we can be better about asking the right questions. I think, like, if I remember correctly, it asks you how many people work at your company, but it doesn't ask you what your job title is. Which is, to me, I would get rid of one and keep the other one. But yeah, definitely a good point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions before I move on? Cool. Ooh, hello. Okay, so next steps, we want to create a lifecycle marketing engine. But first, we're going to have to spend some time implementing data management campaigns, or if you want to call them programs, that are basically there to help us clean up, maintain, keep things organized. We don't do a lot of that now, if at all. So I've already talked through these with Jackie, and I'm just such a nerd with this stuff. So pardon me if I get really excited, but the very first thing I would do is create a manage net new contacts program, which I have lovingly nicknamed Mom, because she is the boss and the creator of all of the subsequent programs, basically, or the feeder. But this is an automated program. It does not send out any emails. It just manages net new contacts. It tags them with the proper tagging. For example, if someone did a thing, like if they took an action, they fill out a white paper, it tags them as active. Or it sends them to Engagement Program to tag them as active, stuff like that. This is the feeder for all lifecycle and automated campaigns and programs. This will help us understand what people are interested in, or it'll feed to a program that helps us understand what people are interested in.
Hey, Newt, does Mom also have a precursor phase, which is kind of that dedupe phase?
Hopefully there is something going on for deduping, but I don't know if that's going to be on the Salesforce side or the Marketo side and how they're going to talk to one another. Maybe Jackie has a little bit more information about that. I think I heard from somebody that we just got.
I think that's on the marketing operations tool set. That's something that's a focus for them, but I imagine that it will most likely be on the Salesforce side. I've always seen it on the Salesforce side.
Salesforce.
And then Marketo is a reflection of the Salesforce database.
Yeah. So
I wondered if that's why I was seeing in some of the data and some of the reporting in Visible, where we had a total number of MQLs versus new MQLs, which I assumed was, a secondary contact at an account that we already had an MQL for us, what we're really talking about there.
Or it could be, for the total MQLs, it could be somebody who is already in our database but is actively looking at our website. It might not have been that we brought them back through email. They might have just landed back on the site or saw a social update or saw an ad, and those would be existing MQLs or existing records that became an MQL.
Got it.
Cool. And this by no means is an exhaustive list of what we need, but this is the stuff that I've worked on in the past that I think would be very helpful to have here as we scale our marketing program. But underneath Mom, we have an engagement status program, and it basically cycles through all activity that's going on in the database. and it tags contacts and leads as, you know, active, inactive, lapsing, pending, etc. So we talked about the engagement status in that crazy mural chart. Engagement status program is what does those things. Okay. And then also we have a welcome program and a double opt-in. These actually do send emails out.
Right.
I was really shocked that we don't have a welcome program. Like, hey, thanks for signing up for GitLab emails. This is what we do. This is who we are. We're cool. This is a really good opportunity to do a lot of different things. It really just depends on what we want to do. I've talked to Jackie about this a little bit, that we want to kind of make it more personalized depending on the person source and potentially location.
Right.
You know, obviously someone who is signing up for a trial is going to get a different experience. Maybe the welcome email is the first email in their trial, or maybe they get one welcome email and then get fed into the trial nurture. There's a lot of different ways to do this. The most recent experience I had with a welcome and double opt-in program, it was one welcome email or two double opt-ins. And the call to action was, hey, it was really nice to meet you at blah event, or thanks for signing up for emails. Please update your preferences so that we can send you emails maybe one day that align to your preferences.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways to slice this. I was trying to do some research regarding whether you want like one or two welcome emails versus a whole series. And I think we can just play around with it, start really lean, and then see what the data show us.
Yeah, I think the other thing we can consider is, as we talked about, is doing a Path Factory A/B test relative to that initial welcome email and see how that performs from a progression perspective, where we can kind of do a progressive profile inside of Path Factory and align the content to that versus kind of the traditional set email with the preferences series. It'll be interesting to see how those two perform in a side-by-side test, if you get my gist.
Yeah, I would be really interested to see if we link them to a preference center or pseudo preference center versus Path Factory, which one.
Yeah. And then Newt, I think when we talk about the creating, right, the lifecycle marketing engine, I think one of the attributes that the engine has to have is an ability to manage consent and delete requests, right?
Oh, yes. Don't even, so that's a whole other thing.
I know.
Okay. So next steps, an unresponsive to SDR nurture, because we have a pretty sizable group of folks that are making it all the way to SDR. They're MQLing, they're getting sent to SDRs. SDRs are reaching out to them, they're doing their best, and they're just bloop. So about, was it 3,500 out of the 22,000 of those people are trial people.
Right.
So we will obviously treat them differently, but this is a project that I've been slowly trying to like build a strategy for, and figure out what that's going to look like. And I have some ideas there.
So I think the main thing, like if we can eliminate the confusion about the trial user for the SDR team, they can focus their efforts better. In other words, if we can say in the initial welcome email or using the preferences center, look, I'm a developer, I just want to try the product out, right?
Yeah.
Then the SDRs understand potentially, the outreach, which may just be very automatic, right? That might be needed for that particular prospect versus, I'm a business owner, I'm a director of engineering, and I'm interested in the totality of the platform, right? So if we can leverage and use the initial welcome email, I think that can define and drive the downstream activities for the SDRs, because it just allows them to better work their queue, right? And then if we can translate that into the scoring, provide some attribution in terms of interesting moments. Hey, this person is a development manager at a large company, and they have actually engaged with 3 pieces of content during the trial. And, so the more of that we can provide to the SDRs, not just in terms of the cumulative score, but in terms of really understanding the interesting moments, I think that'll make them more effective and also be able to be more precise in where they place their time and activity and outreach.
I agree. And I think we need to spend, I don't know who, I know I talked to Evan about it in the past, but we need to spend a little bit of time actually looking at the outreach sequences and how they're performing.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, like I said, we've been in this mode of like, just get it done. That we don't really just take a step back and say, okay, right now I'm going to do my retro and I'm going to go through the data and I'm going to see what's working, what's not. So that would be really good to do, to have, and maybe for the SDR outreach for a trial, just needs to be like, hey, I noticed you signed up for a trial. I'm here to help. If you have any questions, like that's it.
Well, and I think that if we side saddle with them, if we got a session where we side saddled with them, or if we asked Evan to kind of record a session, any of that's incredibly helpful, because now I don't know to what extent the outreach they do is phone versus just strictly email outreach. But that would be other things to find out. But I've found that I always learned a hell of a lot just by sitting with the SDR team, a day a month to see what was coming in, how they were qualifying, what campaigns were working or not.
Yeah.
So maybe we can ask Evan for some permission to do something like that.
Yeah, I would like that a lot. I talked to Megan O'Dowd a lot, who's the SDR enablement manager. We used to work together, and so I talked to her at least probably 3 or 4 times a week.
Good. All right. Well, let's do it. Let's ask her for some time. We'll tell her what we're trying to accomplish, and she may have a better way of doing it, right?
Yeah.
But tell her what we're trying to accomplish is to really understand, how the SDR is working the queue, how we can improve the email nurtures and some of the other things, right? So they're not wasting time on ineffective, right?
Absolutely.
Inquiries that they're trying to convert to MQL, or MQLs that are trying to convert to SQL.
And then, so we talked about improving the trial process and creating a post-trial plan, including looking at do we have an outreach sequence that's specifically tailored to trial people? I actually don't know, Jackie. But we can really make a lot of improvements there. There's so much opportunity. And then preference center updates, like we talked about. Make sure we can deliver also on that.
Yeah, we just did a similar thing. We did a big restructuring and implemented a preference center. I think I told you how we lost all the attribution of users to products at my last gig. The problem is we still had a very low response rate to the preference center email.
We, at the last company that I worked at, we had a very surprisingly high response to the preference center.
Great.
And we had been collecting data for years and not actually doing anything with it. And so my last job upon leaving was getting an actual preference center where the data architecture worked so that people could get what they wanted. And so that we do have quite a bit of work to do on this, because we don't have an easy way to do that right now. And all of my ideas on how to actually capture that data have not worked. So we will have to partner with marketing ops and really come together, figure out how to fix that.
Yep. That's how to do it.
Next steps, Reengagement Program. So as people start to get lapsed, how can we start reengaging them? They're becoming inactive. We don't want that. But at the same time, if we try and get them engaged and they're just not going to engage, we let them go.
Right.
The last thing here, and by no means is this an exhaustive list, because I did not put email compliance, GDPR, can't spam, CASL, all that stuff. It's not on here. But segmentation. I started working on this a little bit. Jackie's seen my crazy slides and ideas about what segmentation needs to look like, but it needs a complete overhaul. And by segmentation in this context, I mean targeting. I don't mean the Marketo term segmentation.
Right.
Although we can use both. But our database just needs to be structured in a way for us to be able to scale our marketing and really work on lifecycle, multi-channel, personalization. And we're not able to do that right now.
Yeah, true marketing efficiency, when we really look at this, is when you can do things like remarket to leads that have gone MQL and get them to come back to you. And I've shown this in prior experiments and in prior gigs where we could go back to the people that are in recycle or that finished the nurture, never took another action. And then we actually did a strategy to them, kind of a long path rewarming strategy. And we got as many as 5% of those people back. And it didn't cost us anything to get them back. All right. And so when you're literally saying, hey, wait a minute, you're living on the MQL train, right? and you need to get people that you need to understand the trigger, right? Because typically what happens there is people are interested in the product or technology. They may be checking it out in advance of a project or initiative that may be coming up in 6 months to a year, right? So they're doing some outreach.
Mhm.
And the two classical problems I see is a lot of companies zeroize the points when they go to that final stage, they go into the recycle category. And then the second thing is they never come back to them. Now, what happens then is they have to reclimb the point ladder, right, to get back to a stage where you get somebody to outreach with them versus to say, hey, this may be indicative of lost budget, right? And so sometimes you can ask people in the email also, and they will respond is to say, I'm just researching at this time. I don't have a project yet, but expect to have something in 6 to 12 months, right? So then you can create structure around that outreach and that rewarming strategy. And again, you can align that into your preferences center too.
Absolutely.
But it's amazing how effective that is. Just if you can get like 5% of the people that are in recycle back, it just starts to improve your CAC ratios and everything like you wouldn't believe, given the amount of time and energy you've spent to get them to those stages. So,
Absolutely. And that is why lifecycle campaigns are so important,
yep,
because you set them up and they run automatically.
automatic, right?
I
And this
love
is what
that.
we call our sand, right? So when we talk about our marketing campaign plan, Jackie, and we talk about the big rocks and the pebbles and the sand, this is the sand, but the sand is very important because you can't walk out on the beach without it, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
these campaigns are critical to have them effective and really structure them.
Yeah.
And so great, fantastic, Newt. Completely agree.
All right. So we have some dependencies. Obviously, we've talked about a few of them. There's a project right now to do a Marketo field cleanup because we have a lot of duplicate fields. We have fields we don't use. We have fields that don't make any sense. We don't even know where the data's piping in from. There's been many years of just I guess just growing so rapidly that we just need to pause for a second and do some cleanup. Once that database fields are cleaned up, though, I would like to talk about how to implement fields that we need that we don't have, and how to set up like a data washing machine, and some like really important database things that we currently are don't have. Dependencies and email compliance plan, like you said, Dunk, GDPR, the right to be forgotten, all of those things. We need to do those things.
Well, and we really are, if you look up to the run up to being a public company, we have to have this established in place and show that we've got it. And we've got it under control.
And this is a project that I was actually part of the large software company while GDPR was rolling out, and I was part of the project for GDPR implementation. So I reached out to Amy on the marketing ops team and I said, hey, let me help you with this because I've done this before.
Right.
So we can work together and get it done. And I always think two heads are better than one. Another dependency is just that completion of the marketing agility project. There's a lot of things in that project that will help us. Like, for example, like some database field cleanup. I think that's part of that project. Email compliance, part of it is part of that project. And then last but not least, I kind of mentioned it already, but a segmentation strategy. And then we can move on to future ideas. So once we have the foundation of the house built, we can build that house as high as we want it to be, and it can be as beautiful as we want, such as an abandoned browse trial email program. I don't know if I want to call it a nurture, but a multi-email program. Abandoned trial. I think I've seen people talk about this before, like, yeah, and like we need to figure out a way of piping that data into Marketo, et cetera. But we can do that. We can work with multiple channels on re-engagement. It doesn't always have to be email. Sometimes email is not the right channel. So if we are looking at inactive, unengaged contacts, can we retarget them using display? Can we try and find them on using different channels? We've also talked about the trial upgrade nurture, but I think that could use a lot of work. I think that's going to be a really important project. Partner marketing, I'm starting to like see like the beginning of partner marketing and I didn't put it here, but customer marketing. And then like testing other channels, the in-mail idea. I actually had a coffee chat with somebody today that works in the sales organization, and I told him about in-mail. I said, Dunk said you should try in-mail, and he was like, okay, so he's taking notes. So let's be creative, try other channels, and see what we can come up with.
So just hey, Newt, real quick, and Jackie can share this with you. If you look at the PMG results relative to InMail versus some of the other forms of channels that they're using, InMail performed very well with certain target personas. So they even saw that too. The problem with InMail, as you know, is it's not a sophisticated platform right now. It's kind of like when Google first launched and you're trying to do SEO and you had to submit your pages by hand, right, for SEO analysis. So we're still in the hand submission phase of InMail. It's not a sophisticated email platform yet. So just be aware there's a lot more work to do in mail, but the payoffs can be very good.
Well,
right?
maybe that's why it performs so well, because it's so simple that people aren't expecting it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, people are used to seeing the sponsored post on the right rail, right?
Yeah.
They're a little less, and they're used to seeing maybe a personal one-to-one outreach from somebody in their email. It's a little less to be able to get you don't see as many people sending you a programmatic invite to a webinar or webcast into InMail. And those are the kind of things that have worked well for me, and as well as, hey, you're a new customer, let's get you into the adoption program. Let's make sure you can get access to your products, or you use it for expansion activities, reaching other people in those accounts that you just landed, and now you're helping the sales team expand. And InMail can be very effective at doing that, at least what I found over the last 18 to 24 months.
Yeah, and alongside potentially not demand gen, but like obviously our community, our evangelism team, etc.
Right.
I think there's going to be a need to be able to communicate. I don't want to say market to that group, but maybe somewhat market/communicate to those people as a community. And that's what I put on the mural slide as community. There's just a really big opportunity to talk to those people and have that data in Marketo so that we're not having to look in Gmail or MailChimp to get that.
Yep. So a couple things to think about as next steps. I think it'd be really helpful to lay out an MVC-oriented plan. The steps, the actions, what are the major areas you want to focus on first, second, third, so we can communicate this. I think the second thing would be to make sure you effectively socialize and get feedback from this plan from some of the other affected constituencies like Evan's team, specifically on the SDR side, as well as with marketing ops, and then also with Danielle.
Definitely.
Because her team's dealing with kind of really looking hard at the inbound trial experience of the user.
Yeah, we have a tie-in with them, and I think we have that meeting is a standing meeting at the moment, right? If not, we'll make sure it is. But we've tied into them a bit on email, and we continue.
And just do a little bit more framing, right? So because like you use the diagram, and you can frame the dialogue with each successive group, right? So you use that picture to then say, okay, here's the activity steps and actions we're going to take on trials, right? And Danielle's team will care about that. And you can do the same thing to frame the discussion with the SDR team. Now let's talk about your nurtures, and let's talk about Recycle and what we're going to do there. So the diagram can continue to be the leverage point that helps everybody understand the totality of the effort, but also understand what you're talking about in this point when you're sharing or communicating it with them. And so, you can white filter the stuff that you're not going to talk about in that conversation.
There's quite a bit of slides here, Dunk, that Jackie was like,
okay,
you don't need to go over this.
Got it.
But
all right, fantastic.
Like, Dunk knows all this. I was like, okay, hide.
Well, I'm always learning. I'm always learning something new. So, I thought your deliverability rates were awesome compared to some of the stuff I've had. I've had mid-80s or below deliverability rates. So I'm like shocked that you're like viewing that as just good.
Yeah, it's not for me. I'm like, I want it at 90, 98.
Wow.
And above.
That's amazing. All right. Thank you so much for the effort. Really great work. And let me know what I can do to help you in any socialization or communication, but absolutely agree. It's imperative that we fix this.
Yeah, I think next steps, I'm sorry if you have to run, is going to help me prioritize what needs to be done, what can be done first, because obviously none of this can be done by one group. We need everyone working together to get it done. But I need to understand, like, what is your number 1, number 2, number 3 priorities, and like, what can I just start working on?
Well,
right
my
away?
number 1, number 2, number 3 priorities may be different than you would think. My number 1 priority is compliance and GDPR, because it'll burn
Okay.
us and we can't have a major issue in a run up to an IPO. And
Right.
so that's a business risk kind of priority. I think the second area I would say is improving the trial experience and the trial welcome series, and converting people, literally working not just to convert them to open rates and email, but convert them to the right step action and activity. So that would be, because again, if we can get a higher conversion rate there, we could potentially can drive more IECV faster. And then I think the third thing to look at would be the in-flight emails that are being used by the SDRs and the sales team, to see if we're doing anything that just looks dumb or not appropriate there. And then I would say, let's then focus on the adoption marketing email strategy. Because again, we have to get them converted. And we may find some quick wins in some of those areas we can just simplify. And then I think the other part to this is we have a hypothesis that integrating Path Factory in an A/B test will give us some additional data that we may not be capturing today, which is, giving people to progress faster through that life cycle, get them more comfortable, allow them to consume the content the way they want to. And we'll get some engagement metrics out of there that we may be able to pilot test with the SDRs to say, hey, this user had, a content immersive experience that lasted 15 minutes. They went through 3 assets. Let's try a test of seeing if you're calling them, converts better than somebody who's, only done 1 asset at this stage of the trial nurture. So we'll have some more experimentation. But I will defer to Jackie, because while I've said my priorities, and the first one is still the GDPR consent privacy management piece. After that, I kind of defer more towards Jackie, because she's looking at the big picture also. So Jackie, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone across anything related to marketing, or email marketing especially, would agree that GDPR is the top priority, and it's part of the marketing agility projects. It has, marketing ops and legal eyes on it. So that is viewed already as the top priority. I would agree that trial experience needs to improve. We have a lot of trials. They are a very strong lead source. So let's make sure that those convert correctly. I would be curious to get, as we socialize this, see what others think about the top priorities and take that feedback to guide us. There's a lot of opportunity across the life cycle that there are just so many things that we could be doing. And I think sharing the wealth and making sure that we're tackling the right things is going to be important.
Yep.
So I love customer. I'm always going to gravitate towards it, but I know that, there might be some things earlier in the earlier stages of leads and sales opportunities that we should be driving into.
All right. Well, let's figure out who our listening points are going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, that'll be the next step. Definitely the socialization, talking through. I know we this is the first we've really talked through Newt's plan and like looking at the life cycle. So this was something that we were going to come back to Danielle with. So she's already on our target list. I'm talking with Becky too, who is going to be, I think, drilled in.
And I've got a call with Danielle in a little bit here, so I'll share with her that this is coming.
Great.
But I won't take away any thunder from you, Newt.
Nah, and we've got the recording, so we can always point people here as well.
There you go.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Great work again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.